Joining me now, two members of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, which will lead the debate on the Iran deal. Republican John Barrasso of Wyoming and the top Democrat on the committee, Ben Cardin of Maryland. Gentlemen, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you just were sitting here with me watching the interview with the two secretaries. Senator Barrasso, what's your biggest problem with the argument they made?
Well, a couple of things. One is there is bipartisan skepticism about this deal, and there's a huge difference between even the framework of 3 months ago to the deal that just got released the other day, which is very complicated. The inspections that you raised, they were supposed to be anytime, anywhere, 24/7. Now it's going to be 24 days. And this late-minute concession, because I think this administration was so desperate to get any deal signed, the concession that we would now allow Russia to sell to Iran ballistic missiles that could hit in the neighborhood, but also with the strength to hit to the United States, I think was an absolute mistake and a concession and almost a surrender by the president to get any deal signed. That's my concern.
Senator Cardin, did Kerry and Moniz persuade you, or do you still have questions?
Well, fortunately, Congress has 60 days in order to review the agreement. We're going to take that time in order to understand it and ask our questions and get our answers. The bottom line is whether this agreement prevents Iran from becoming a nuclear weapon power. The inspection enforcement regime is a very important part of it. We want to understand it better. The question will be whether this is effective enough to prevent.
Does the 24-day, which Secretary Moniz said, look, they can't hide anything in 24 days. Are you satisfied with that?
Well, we want to look at the covert opportunities. We understand that we cannot trust Iran. We know that there are many ways that they can get a nuclear weapon. One is through covert activities in a military facility. What does the 24-day delay mean? And that's going to be questions that we will be asking, and we'll be having hearings starting this week, and that's going to be one of the primary areas of our interest.
Senator Cardin, I think it's fair to say that as the top Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, the White House is counting on you to support the deal. Are you, honestly, are you a sure yes vote for this deal?
I'm going to use the review period to understand it. My obligations are to the people of this country, people I represent in Maryland, the people in this country. I'm going to do what's in the best interest of this country. I have to decide whether this agreement puts us in a better shot of preventing Iran from becoming a nuclear weapon state or not. And that's going to be how I evaluate it.
So they shouldn't count on you at this point.
It's not a matter of what party I belong to. It's not a matter of supporting the president. The question is what's in the best interest of this country.
President Obama said that there are two options, either this deal or another war in the Middle East. Senator Barrasso, what's your alternative?
Well, my alternative was to say, look, I'm most interested in the security of the American people. That is a false choice that the president brings out. It is scare tactics to try to get this approved. My alternative is a better deal. But when you're so desperate or eager to make a deal, sometimes you make decisions and concessions that should not be made. 2 years ago, we had Iran where we wanted them because specifically of the sanctions that the Senate imposed. The president opposed those sanctions. We insisted. That's what brought Iran to the table in the first place. It was in their enlightened self-interest to deal with us. But when the president then takes other restrictions off of the table as in terms of a true threat to Iran, that strengthens their hand, weakened our hand, which is why I think we have this deal today. My answer is a better deal. Go back and make a better deal by increasing the sanctions, not removing them.
But while the sanctions Senator Barrasso, brought Iran to the table, they didn't stop Iran's nuclear program. Let me put some stats up. When President Bush started going after Iran in 2003, they had 163 centrifuges. After all the sanctions, when President Obama began these negotiations in 2013, Iran had 19,000 centrifuges. Sanctions weren't working. They were not stopping Iran's nuclear program.
Which is what tells you if you give them more money, they're not going to use it for the better interest of the people of that country. They're going to use it for terrorism. They're going to use it to continue to develop.
You're missing the point, sir, respectfully. The point is we had sanctions on them. The economy was badly hurt, and they went from 100 centrifuges to 19,000.
Because their focus continues to be becoming a nuclear power.
So how
are
more sanctions going to work?
They're going to cheat. We know that. They do that. They're going to use the money for terror. We need to continue. And I want to hold the president to what he was at 2 years ago, which when he said, we are going to prevent them from getting a nuclear weapon, He has now moved the goalpost. All he wants to do is manage it. They will get a nuclear weapon. They will be a nuclear power as well as an industrial and a military power.
I want to bring you in a moment, Senator Cardin, but I want you to say, let's go back and let's negotiate a new deal. How do you answer the president's argument, if Congress disapproves this deal, you're going to end up with the worst of both worlds? Here's what the president said.
Without this deal, there would be no limits on Iran's nuclear program. There would be no monitoring, no inspections. The sanctions we rallied the world to impose would unravel.
The president's point is the sanctions will be gone because a lot of our international partners aren't going to go back to the table. They've negotiated a deal that they're satisfied with. Iran will be free to ramp up its nuclear program, and the U.S. will get the blame.
But the president says if they don't comply, he's going to have snapback sanctions. So how can he say that the snapback sanctions will actually be effective if he says sanctions don't matter? The president's also saying that no matter how terrible the deal might be, it's better than the alternative of war. No matter how badly they have come up with this deal, no matter how many concessions they have made, it's better than the alternative. I think it's a false choice.
Senator Cardin?
Well, first, Chris, the reason sanctions worked is because the U.S. showed leadership, and then we got the international community to go along with us, and we started crippling Iranian economy. For us to make sure there's enforcement, the snapbacks are very important. We have to be able to snap back those international sanctions. And one of the questions we're going to be asking is, if there is a breach, how that breach will in fact work to make sure that the international community is again united. And quite frankly, there's a provision in this that is pretty strong, that the United States unilaterally can go to the United Nations and get the sanctions back on. We're going to take a look at it, though, because we are concerned whether we can put back the regime or not.
I want to bring up one last question with you, Senator Cardin, and that is that the United Nations will consider a resolution this week on whether or not to approve the Iran deal. You, as the top Democrat on Senate Foreign Relations, and the chairman, Senator Corker, have sent a letter to the president saying that Congress should go first before the UN, given the fact that even if the UN approves the deal, there's a 60 to 90-day delay, and you're going to have to decide yes or no in 60 days. What difference does it make who goes first? And is the fact that the White House is insisting on taking it to the UN before Congress votes, will that alienate Democrats who might vote against the president?
Well, this is a process issue. We're going to review the agreement on its substance. That's going to be our key as to whether this agreement makes our country safer from nuclear Iran or not. That's going to be the main, this is going to be the focus of it. However, I don't know why they're going to the United Nations. I think they should have gone to the United Nations after the 60-day review. They don't gain anything by doing it earlier. I think it is not consistent with the Iranian Review Act. So that's why I joined Senator Corker and urged the president to reconsider and wait till after the 60-day period. It doesn't take effect until 90 days after the UN acts, so there's nothing lost by waiting for the congressional review.
Well, they're apparently not going to wait. They're going to do it. Is that how much trouble is that going to create for the administration on Capitol Hill?
Bottom line is, does this agreement prevent Iran from becoming a nuclear weapon power or not? That's going to be the review standard.
Senator Barrasso, quick final word.
Well, I talked to Samantha Powers, the UN ambassador, on this issue. She said the greatest weakness of this whole deal is the complexity. What's the rush? The American people have a right to see what's in this and to weigh. And this has been hidden.
It's online.
Well, it has been hidden. Chuck Schumer, in one of the reports today, said he's going to read it over the recess. He hasn't gone through it yet. Members haven't had a chance. 158 pages.
But you haven't voted on it yet either.
We want to have an opportunity for the U.S., the people, the elected representatives,
I don't understand. You're saying 60 days isn't enough?
I say 60 days is enough. The president shouldn't go to the United Nations before the 60 days. We need to go home over the recess, listen to our constituents. I was in Wyoming yesterday, got an earful about why this is so bad and a risk to the United States national security. We have the time, but the president shouldn't do an end run around Congress and the American people to go to the Security Council of the United Nations before we act.
Senator Barrasso, Senator Cardin, thank you both. Thanks for coming in. Obviously, we'll stay on top of this.
Thanks.